Apes, together, strong!
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn, alone among God's primates. He kills for sport, or lust, or greed. Yea, he will murder his brother to possess his brother's land. Let him not breed in great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home and yours. Shun him. Drive him back into his jungle lair. For he is the harbinger of death.
Apes, together, strong!
Everybody, and welcome to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today I am finally doing something that I have been wanting to do pretty much since the very first day that I started this channel, and that is a compare and contrast video taking the original Planet of the Apes film series that ran from 1968 to 1973, consisting of 5 movies, and comparing it to the rebooted modern Planet of the Apes film series that began in 2011 and is still ongoing today, that consists of 4 movies. This is going to work very similarly to my Caesar versus Caesar video that I did last summer, and for those who haven't seen that video, first, you should go check it out, and you can check it out right here. And second, in it, I essentially looked at both versions of the Caesar character, one played by Roddy McDowall and the other played by Andy Serkis, and went through all of the core elements of each character before giving my pick for which one I thought was overall better. This is more or less going to work the exact same way. Here, I'm going to be taking a look at both series of movies, and for each one, I'm going to compare the following elements of their films: acting, special effects, storytelling, filmmaking, characters, music, and overall success and impact. After each one, I will give my opinion on which one does it better, and then at the very end, I will let you know which one I think is the overall better series of movies. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started with acting. So when looking at the acting of the original Planet of the Apes film series, these are the 5 original films that came out from 1968 to 1973. These movies have a lot going for them in terms of acting. There are so many iconic and beloved actors and memorable performances throughout all of them. Just from the jump, you have Charlton Heston and Maurice Evans, and then you also have Kim Hunter and Roddy McDowall, who does 2 completely different roles, and he knocks both of them out of the park with Cornelius and Caesar. You also have people like Eric Braeden, Ricardo Montalban, who's one of Hollywood's most iconic actors, and Harry Rhodes as well from Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. So many people in these movies were doing such top-notch work and doing a bit more classical, old-school style acting that all works wonders for the films. And in particular, Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall have become iconic in the world of film overall, and I think of every actor who's ever been in a Planet of the Apes movie, these 2 have become most synonymous with the franchise overall to this day, above almost anyone else in the series. There's also the fact that the ape actors, I think, were able to be a bit more expressive in the original films due to being more human-like, and the apes being much more fully evolved and able to speak and emote in a way that the reboot apes just weren't able to, just because of the type of story they were telling there. Then when you look at the reboot films, it doesn't have as many overall performances on the same level of quality or iconicness or impact as the original series. That being said, Andy Serkis as Caesar, in my opinion, singularly tops all of them and gives what I think is the best performance in the franchise overall. And then when you look at the rest of the cast of those movies, whether it be Rise, Dawn, War, or Kingdom, you have some excellent acting throughout. You have Toby Kebbell as Koba, Woody Harrelson, Steve Zahn, Kevin Durand, Peter Macon, and Owen Teague also I think stand out quite a bit. And though collectively I wouldn't quite put them on the same level of the cast of the originals have the advantage of having more time spent with them over the last several decades, whereas these movies are much more modern and we've only gotten to see them within the last single decade. So the original movies and that original cast and those original actors have a bit of an upper hand when it comes to legacy. So I think there's still time for that to evolve with the new films and get to that same level one day. You also have some of the ape actors like Karen Knoble and Terry Notary, who I think are both great, but it's hard to compare their performances to characters who talk and have a lot more to do. So overall, it's hard to pick one over the other when it comes to the acting acting, because there's just so much talent across the board. The originals, I think, are a bit stronger as a collective, just in terms of numbers, but the best of the best comes from the reboots with Andy Serkis. And the supporting cast, I think, is still incredibly strong, so to me, they basically cancel each other out and overall balance each other out, and so for acting, it's gonna be a tie.
I have much use for clever apes. Now, can you tell me? Did May tell you how to get inside my vault?
She told me nothing.
Told you nothing.
Next up, characters. When you look at the original Planet of the Apes movies, they are littered with some of the franchise's most iconic characters of them all, and some of the most beloved in all of film in general. You have Taylor, Cornelius, Zira, Nova, Dr. Zaius, the original Caesar, even the characters who are lesser known to the wider audience like Armando, Dr. Hassline, Mr. McDonald, are really quickly engaging and have a lot of depth to them despite not having as much screen time as some of the bigger characters. And then when you also look at the original 5 films, they managed to successfully change protagonists multiple times by introducing a rich group of characters in the first film, using them to support Brent in the second film, bringing 2 of them back in the third film as leads with Cornelius and Zira, and building off of their story to create an instantly lovable Caesar in the final 2 movies. But then when you look at the reboot films, Caesar is arguably the best Planet of the Apes character of them all. Andy Serkis's version of that character is just incredible. I've talked to death about how much I love that version of the character, but most of the other characters aren't quite on the same level or iconography or get as much exploration as the biggest ones of the original series, outside of arguably Koba, who I think is one of the few characters in the new movies who is on that same level. You also have characters like Maurice and Rocket, who I think are great, as are Noah and Raka and several others who we've gotten to see over the last several films, but they just don't quite get to the same heights of belovedness, at least to me. So it's hard to choose just because of how much I love Caesar in the rebooted films, even more so than pretty much any of the original series characters. But again, when just looking purely at the total numbers when it comes to great memorable characters in one series versus the other, the original series had a few more characters of that top tier caliber across the board overall. And so when it comes to characters, I'm gonna go with the original series.
Well, why doesn't she take it? Because I loathe bananas.
Zira!
Next up, storytelling. The original films, I think, started out masterfully with the 1968 classic, and from then on it goes on what I think is a very fun, though pretty uneven ride through those first 3 sequels, not so much the 4th, sorry Battle fans. But when you actually go back and watch all those movies back to back to back, it's pretty obvious that they were written almost kind of like a game of telephone, with each being a kind of almost radical reaction to the previous film. They do have a lot of high story moments that are really great and really strong, but there's also a large handful of storytelling lows that just kind of convolute the ongoing story and overall timeline of the original series. And while Escape and Conquest tell compelling stories in their own right, neither ever quite reach or recapture the heights of that original 1968 film, in my opinion, though they do manage to build off of it in interesting and fun ways. But then when you look at the reboot films, Rupert Wyatt and the filmmakers working on that first film with Rise created a really strong foundation, and then from then on, when Matt Reeves came on board and then Wes Ball after him, planned and built out the story in a way that makes it feel like it was all mapped out from the very beginning, even if it wasn't. Each film in the Caesar trilogy successfully builds on the last, going deeper into the characters and deeper into the world that's being built. Kingdom does the same, but while introducing a new group of characters and a new time period, and even setting the stage for even bigger things to come. The quality of the overall storytelling stays consistent, if not improves from film to film, which is incredibly rare for movie franchises in general, let alone Planet of the Apes. So while the original series takes things in constantly unexpected and wacky fun directions, it comes at the cost of overall quality from start to finish, with things making sense and timelines lining up, working less and becoming more confusing as the films progress. The reboot films being more grounded and taking more time to develop each individual story has helped it maintain overall consistency and quality as one of its biggest strengths as a franchise, with depth, emotion, and making the audience ask interesting questions constantly being the #1 priority and constantly being really well executed. And so because of that, when it comes to storytelling, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Reboot series. Next up, special effects. And before I get into this one, just so we're all on the same page, when I say special effects, that is all encompassing of on-screen effects. So I am including both special prosthetic makeup and practical effects, as well as digitally created CGI and performance capture effects. I know some people might take issue with that, but both are just the special effects technology of their time, and so that's how I'm approaching it. So when it comes to the original franchise, John Chambers changed the game with his special effect prosthetic makeup for the original Ape characters, and it was so revolutionary that he was even given a special honorary Oscar for his work. It's also to this day still some of the most iconic special effects work ever put on screen, and like several other things in the original film, is referenced and parodied over 50 years later.
Dear me, what are those things coming out of her nose?
Hey, watch my helmet. Spaceballs?
There goes the planet.
It does degrade in quality in the later films, and the use of pullover masks hurts the overall impressiveness, but I don't think it takes away from just how impactful that makeup design work was in the original film and even some of the sequels. It's definitely a bit dated by today's standards, especially among younger audiences, but I think it still feels very believable in the context of the film overall, and it remains iconic to this day and is as much a part of creating the film's unique aesthetic as anything else in the movie is. And then when it comes to the Reboot films, Weta Effects changed the game with their work on all 4 Reboot movies, with each one being nominated for an Oscar and Kingdom having a good chance to finally win, but I am going to be talking about that in a whole other video. It also propelled the art and capabilities of photoreal CGI and performance capture visual effects forward with every single film, and it improved it every time. Similar to the original movies, Rise had some effects that are dated and don't quite hold up by today's standards, but it is still impressive and revolutionary for their time. And the CGI approach and just how groundbreaking those effects were really helped in giving Planet of the Apes a 21st century aesthetic makeover that was more grounded in reality, while still honoring what came before and doing exactly for special effects wizardry for modern filmmaking as the originals did for 70s filmmaking. But at the end of the day, both films pulled off what was once thought to be impossible using the special effects capabilities of their respective eras. The originals elevated what prosthetics and makeup could do in 1968, while Rise, followed by Dawn, War, and Kingdom, elevated what CGI and performance capture could do and how it could be done throughout the 2010s and now the 2020s. While I totally get why some fans prefer the old school prosthetics, and also get why other fans prefer the CGI of the newer films, I don't think you can truly say one is just overall better than the other. They each do as good a job as the other in helping to bring their worlds to life, and so for that reason, the special effects to me is gonna be a tie.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Next, filmmaking. The original Planet of the Apes from 1968 is incredibly well directed and turned what could be seen as a wacky sci-fi concept, despite being based on a beloved novel, into an iconic and beloved film that has stood the test of time and even propelled science fiction forward for its era. That being said, the filmmaking does become a bit more uneven when it comes to the sequels. Escape and Conquest do showcase a lot of really excellent work that succeeds in bringing in other genres to the franchise, like comedy and more of a political thriller kind of thing, but Beneath and Battle show a lot weaker efforts, especially Battle, which to me feels like a made-for-TV movie when it comes to the overall quality of the filmmaking. The highs are really high and I think exemplify the best of 60s and 70s filmmaking, but the lows are the worst of what the series has to offer, and for me can often be pretty hard to sit through. But when you look at the Reboot films, and similarly to the original film, Rise had a lot going going against it and was able to create a beloved film that worked for the masses when it could have gone horribly wrong, thanks to a strong script and really strong direction. But unlike the originals, the filmmaking actually got stronger, more mature, more complex, and overall more impressive with each film in the Caesar trilogy, with Kingdom managing to defy the odds and be able to sustain that momentum. And in particular, I think Dawn and War are perfect examples of masterful visual storytelling, with Matt Reeves as a filmmaker elevating what the franchise was capable of to entirely new heights. Things like the cinematography, the sound design, and the overall intensity of the filmmaking that you see on screen truly rivals anything you see in the original films, even the very first, which I still think is the best movie overall. But what Matt Reeves did with those two films, and what Rupert Wyatt did with Rise, and what Wes Ball did with Kingdom, all come together to make what I think is an incredible series of films. Just like with the writing and the storytelling, the original series has an incredibly strong start, but began to stumble with the sequels, some more than others, and despite some really great stuff throughout films like Escape and Conquest, it just doesn't compare to the original film when it comes to overall quality filmmaking, and the same can be said for how it compares to what we saw on screen throughout Rise, Dawn, War, and Kingdom, making for a run of films that on average come together a lot stronger just as overall movies. So when it comes to the filmmaking in the Planet of the Apes franchise, which series does it better? I'm gonna go with the Reboot series.
I'm sorry. My friend.
I thought we had a chance.
I did too.
Next up, music. When you look at the original film series, you of course start out, as always, with the 1968 original film that had music done by iconic film composer Jerry Goldsmith, which gave the franchise its own unique, haunting, but really exciting sound that I still love and listen to time and time again today. The music played a large part in building out the world of the original film and adding to the overall aesthetic and tone. Certain musical pieces from Escape and Conquest I think are also just as strong as the music from the original. I think the score for Conquest overall is really great, and I think just like how those movies kind of helped play a role in bringing in other types of genres, I think they also did a great job at expanding the franchise's sound. When you look at the musical score of Escape, which had much more of a contemporary 70s type of sound, and Conquest had much more of a bombastic, almost horror-like sound. That said, there is a lot of music that gets reused constantly throughout the franchise without anything new being brought to it, and for me, the scores for Beneath and especially Battle are the worst examples, with also a lot of lackluster music and just way too much retreading. But then in comparison, all four of those Reboot films offer very memorable and powerful scores that to me stand apart from one another, but also still feeling interconnected and like they build off of each other and they're all part of one cohesive universe. I think in particular, Patrick Doyle's music for Rise and Giacchino's music for War especially stand out as some of the best blockbuster music of the 21st century. The music is as crucial to the storytelling in the new films, especially the Caesar trilogy, as anything else that we see on screen, and it acts in its own way as kind of its own character. I also think all of the music, whether it be Giacchino's music for Dawn and War, or Patrick Doyle's for Rise, or John Paisano's music for Kingdom, does a really great job at creating something new and moving things forward while also paying homage to Jerry Goldsmith's original music when appropriate, but it's never a slave to it and it's constantly doing its own new thing, all while still feeling very in line with what you expect from Planet of the Apes. As I've talked about numerous times when talking about the original films and its sequels, I've always loved the musical scores of the original films, and Jerry Goldsmith is undoubtedly one of Hollywood's all-time great classic composers. But Michael Giacchino has made a name for himself in the last decade, becoming what I think is one of the best working composers of the 21st century, and his music for War is one of the best film scores I have personally ever heard, whether it be a blockbuster franchise movie or otherwise. That, paired with his excellent work on Dawn and Patrick Doyle's tragically underrated work on Rise, are what put the music of the newer films over that of the original film, and more so its sequels. And because of that, when it comes to music, I'm going with the Reboot series. And finally, we have arrived at success and overall impact. Looking back at the original 1968 film, it was one of Hollywood's first major blockbusters and started one of the very first and now longest running franchises of all time. And while the sequels made less money with each movie, they did cultivate a large and devoted fan base who continuously craved to keep seeing more and were the reason that the franchise would continue on movie after movie. And that success of the films is what led to 2 television shows and would go on to become an often referenced part of the pop culture zeitgeist for decades. It held such a long-lasting legacy as an iconic staple in the grand scope of cinematic history. Turning things to the reboot films, it hasn't quite yet hit the same level of iconography of the original film as a whole, but the overall franchise success and widespread appeal among audiences has been, at least as far as I can tell, far stronger overall. All 4 movies have been praised both by critics and audiences, with Dawn and War in particular holding some of the highest critic and audience scores of the entire franchise, and in general are some of the most widely beloved blockbusters of the last decade. The reboot films have also sneakily become one of Hollywood's most valuable franchises in the modern age, and one that constantly lives up to fan excitement while delivering quality and thought-provoking entertainment. So if both series of films were a few decades old and the modern movies had been over and done with for a long time, just like the originals are now, this might be a little easier to pick one over the other, but the originals did create such a large legacy in their time that has now stood the test of time and is still beloved and influential today. The newer films don't have that right now, but with how well they've done, how beloved they are, and how much wider they've appealed to the mass audience without losing that thought-provoking essence of what makes Planet of the Apes, this one could go either way when we do eventually compare the 2 movie series decades from now. For the time being, when you look at both of them, I just can't pick one over the other, and for that reason, the success and overall impact is gonna be a tie.
I'll tell you one thing that every good soldier knows. The only thing that counts in the end is power. Naked, merciless force!
And so, with all of the comparisons made, it's time for my final verdict. Which series, in my opinion, is overall the better group of movies within the Planet of the Apes franchise? Before I give my answer, I do want to again stress, as always, that I love both versions of this franchise with my entire heart. I grew up obsessing and loving the original films, and I've had such a thrilling and fun time watching the modern movies unfold across the last decade, but there can only be one winner here, and to me, that winner is the reboot series of the Planet of the Apes.
What a wonderful day!
While it was incredibly hard for me to compare these two and finally figure out for myself and for all of you which one I think is better, it's become clear to me that just overall, the new films tell a stronger story, are collectively better made and more boundary-pushing films, and just 4 movies in, feel like they have dove in deeper into the potential of what Planet of the Apes can be, with even greater potential still to be realized. There is a part of me that does think that I might slightly prefer the originals just in terms of nostalgia and rewatchability, but when you're looking at overall quality and what in general I think are just the better series of films, it's pretty hard to argue against the reboots. But that is just my opinion. I want to know what your opinion is. Which series do you think is better? What did you think of my comparison? Do you think I was off with any of them? Do you think I was right with any of them? Are there any other categories maybe I should have added? And where do you ultimately land on the debate? I want to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button. You can also now join the Ape Nation Discord server for daily discussions about the franchise, and if you're interested in seeing more of my videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.